Hello, I'm Li Hao. So in the last videos, we talked about slots and how we can communicate data through slots. And in the previous videos, I might have misspoke about the slot template. There's no such thing as slot template. It's Svelte fragment. So sorry for misspoken and mistyped it. I must have been sleeping while recording this video. That video, right? So today we're gonna talk about slot forwarding. It's a good way for us to revise and ensure that we really understand how slots works. So let's take a look at what is slot forwarding and have a check where how good we know about slots. So first thing is over here, I have prepared a REPL where I have three components. I have A, I have B, and I have C. Right? So A imports B, B imports C, and the app will import A. So we just leave the app component alone, and we're just gonna take a look at the A component. Or rather, let's take a look at the C component first. So the C component is the most interesting one. We have three slots. The header. We have three slots element. Three of them are named slots, so they have names for it. Right? They are not default slots. They have names. Right? We have header, content, and we have footer. Okay, so how do you pass elements into this header slot? Well, if you are in the B component and you want to do that, you would first create a component called C, and within C you can have elements. As long as your elements has the slot attribute called header, then that element and all its children will be inserted into the header slots. So for example, if I come over here, I have, say, a div with a slot name header. So you have to make sure that this slot attribute value is the same as the name. Then all its contents will be inserted into the header in C, right? So here I'm going to say C header, and this is C footer. Right? So C header, C footer. So you see that this is being inserted into it, right? If you have a few elements, right? That is so one element can have only one element can have an attribute called slots with the same. So you can have multiple elements within this components, but the slots attribute value has to be unique, right? You can't basically do this where you have multiple elements with a name called slots. Elements with attribute a slot attribute value that is the same, right? You can't have two slots header. So if you want to have two siblings elements to be passed into the same slots element, then what you need is a Svelte fragment, right? This is a way for you to group your elements. You group your elements. So over here, we're going to copy the slot attribute, and yeah, we don't need this. Copy our slot attributes and wrap these two elements, these two siblings element together, and now we insert both the div into the C header, right? Okay, so far so good. We've learned this before, right? This is just a revision. So now let's make things slightly harder. So for example, now I want to pass content from A to B. What do I do? Well, B will have to have a slot. Say for example, I come over here and define the slot. I'm going to this name a B header. Okay, I have a slot. Okay, I just can close it directly. I don't need any fallback. So I have a B header over here. And to pass contents from A to B header, what I need is to come over here in A, create this component called B, and then have elements inside. So here I'm going to create div again, header from A. And I need to have a slot attribute to tell that, because this is a name slot, so this is not a default slot. This is a name, and then I need to create in A. I want to pass something into that named slots. I need to have a slot attribute with the same value with this name of the slot. So I'm going to say slot attribute value is equal to the same thing, right? So now you see that B header has the header from A over here. And then, yeah, this is the same thing as how we pass from B to C, right? Okay, so let's move on one more step. What if I want contents from A? I want to have this slot, whatever the content is passing to B header slot, to be passed into C's header slot. Right, so what do I do? Okay, so first thing, I could come over here. Instead of having this div, remove all this and take and copy this and put the slots in over here. Okay, so now what you can see is I still use the same slots element, but this slots element is being placed inside a instead of being put somewhere else, you can put in here as well, right? It's how the slots element can be placed anywhere. Now what I want is I want to place it inside a C component and into this slot called header, slot attribute called header, so that it is all the contents from A will be inserted into the slot named header in C component, right? So now you can see that I can do this, and it's kind of forward like the content from A into B to be inserted into B, but then the content you insert into B is going to take and insert into the C component, right? So this is like forwarding the slots. And if you're going to do this, you can simplify it by come over here. If this is all you have, because Svelte fragment is usually used when you want to group multiple elements to insert into one slot, right? But in our case, we only want to have only one element, which is this slots element. So a further way to simplify this, we can copy this slots attribute and pass it inside this slots element, and we can remove this Svelte fragment, right? And you can see that it's still working, right? It's still working. You take in contents from A in the A file, you take it in and pass it into the B component over here, right? So the slots attribute says B header, so we're gonna insert into a slots element in B component named B header. And then I want to pass this this whole element coming from A, I want to slot it inside a slot in C component named header. So I come over here and add slot attribute called header, and there it is, it's being slotted into C component. Right? To make matter worse or confusing, sometimes you might write something like this where the name and the slots is the same. So here it's like this, but you need to know that you after my explanation, hopefully you are clearer now, where basically slots and the name creates a name slots element, which says that whatever coming from whoever create a B component, they can create something with a slot attribute called header that will insert into there, right? And at the same time, if you have a slot attribute, then it means that I want to insert into this component, right? Wherever it has a slot named header inside C component. Okay, so now let's take a look. Hopefully you understand this, and let's take a look, revise again what we've learned in the previous video where we say about communication, right? Data, how do you pass data, right? So say for example, if I come over here, I have a script tag, and I have a counter equals 0, and as always I like counter because it's easy to create and demonstrate. Button. So oops. Okay. And I have a button to counter. I have a button to increment this counter value. Okay, I want to pass this counter into the slots counter. So when I pass it in, you will see that over here I can access this value, right? Via the let, right? So I can have a let counter, right? And but okay, I have a let counter, but then again, I have a let counter, but this is usually used in all the elements, right? If I come over here and if I have a div, I would have this. I could now use this counter over here and do something about it, right? I can show this counter directly. This is the element, right? As you can see, it's incrementing. But instead of having a div or something else, I have a slots element, right? Slots element is for people to insert something inside, right? So now probably I would want to also pass this counter value to whoever is slotting into my slots. So I can come over here and say counter. I'm do this. So I'm going to pass this counter value, go over and insert and provide to whoever is slotting into the header. So this is the slot header over here. And I can take this same thing, let counter, and I come over here and use this value. Now, you see that when I increment, this data is being updated, right, over here. So this data comes from how I pass this data is when I create a slots element, I can have props. So any props you have, the data will be passed into whatever elements that is going to insert into that slots element. So whatever elements are elements with slots attribute with the same name. So in here, C component, we have slots attribute called header. So this will receive that counter, right? To receive it, you use a let counter. And now, because this element just coincidentally is a slot element, or else we were just gonna use this counter, but this is a slot element, which means it's not showing anything but someone to insert content in, right? So we also want to pass this data into whoever is inserting into this slots element. So we're gonna create these props so that we can pass that data down. Right? Of course, you would say that this slots element could have fallback, right? So this is a fallback. So this is this content will be rendered if you don't pass in a element with a slots name header, right? So for example, if I say this is header Z, now you see a fallback, and this fallback has this content, right, where basically is this one, right? You take let counter and you're gonna show the content over here. But if you pass something that has the same slot attribute, now you will want to pass a counter to these elements, right? If you want to, right? You don't have to. You can pass as a counter. You can maybe rename it as say foo equals counter. Now what you can do is maybe let foo and then take the value of foo over here and show foo, right? So this is the foo value over here. You can see over here, right? So of course, so it's up to you whether you want to pass it down or name it something else or do something with it, maybe foo counter times 2. So what you get over here, the foo value that you receive is always 2 times of the counter. That's really up to you, right? I'm just gonna show how you can pass data all the way back in. Right? As we learn, we can also pass data upwards, or over here we have this data go through A, B, and C, right? So everyone can be participated into the data to be passed in. So now I'm gonna have a B value, create a button on click. B. Okay, I have a button called B button that I'm gonna pass a props called sum now. I'm gonna counter plus B. Okay, and so this one I'm gonna nicely put this is C, this is B, and now I also in A I also gonna have something called let A equals to 0. Gonna copy this code over. A plus plus A. Now this will be sum. So we're gonna take let's sum and sum plus A. So this is a sum from A. But then the sum plus A. So what is sum? Sum is actually coming from here, which is, let me make it a new line so it's easier to read. Sum is equal to counter plus B. So B comes from the B component. And what is counter? Counter comes from here, right? From the let's. So which means it's come from C. So what is counter over here? This counter is this variable from C. Right? So we increment any of them, you see that it is adding all the variables, all the counters from A, B, and C. Right? So this is amazing. If you this unlocks a lot of possibilities that you can do. Possibilities are endless. Imagination is endless. It's up to you, right? Hopefully, I explained this slot forwarding concept to you clearly. And I think that this the idea of slot forwarding, like forwarding a slot, really enforces you to think about how slots really work. What is the relationship between a slots element and the slots attribute, and how do you pass data across them, right? Hopefully after this video you don't have any doubts anymore, but if you still do, comments down below, ask me any questions if you still have, right? I'm very more than welcome to answer all of them. And as always, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when the next one is out. So see ya, bye bye.